Welcome to the Darcy Wellness Diet Detox Program. I want to thank everybody here for agreeing to be on camera as we take you through this process. My name is Geoff Darcy. I'm an acupuncturist and herbalist. And my wife and partner, Po Darcy, do this program every year. So if you'd like to introduce yourself.
My name is Po Darcy, and Geoff and I have been running this Diet Detox programs for probably about 15 years now. And we take you through a 3-phase program where the first phase is the most detoxifying phase. In that phase, you'll only be eating fruits and vegetables, drinking lots of healthy beverages, teas, and we're advocating organic food if you can do it this phase. And then we go into phase 2, which we add a few things in, and phase 3, which is going back to almost normal eating, but a very healthy version of the way that you're probably eating right now. So the mission underlying this program is to get you to feel fantastic, to just give your vital organs a break. Underlying the mission of all of that is to really re-educate ourselves about nourishing ourselves and making healthy food choices and finding the best quality ingredients that we can out there. And we're going to talk about why it's important to detoxify once a year, sometimes twice a year, and why it's important to really educate ourselves about finding healthy food. Unfortunately, some of the crops out there, they've lost a lot of their nutrients, and so we're going to feel what it feels like to really re-nutrient ourselves, like really saturate ourselves with lots of vitamins and minerals. So even though it seems like we're eating a very limited diet, we're actually going to be really filling ourselves up with lots of nutrients. So it's a great experience.
Yeah, we often get asked, well, why do it? This concept of a build-up of toxicity, we'll get into that, about the internal toxins as well as the external toxins that we take on board and how that kind of starts to lower our ability to filter toxins. What we're trying to do is to give our bodies a break so that the liver can start to raise up its game, and it's the body's filter. So it filters out a lot of these toxins from the blood, internal toxins, bacteria, fungi, and as well as external toxins. They come into us from the food supply. For instance, an average American ingests 10 pounds of chemicals through our diet every single year. And what we want to try to do, and our view is that our bodies can be strong in breaking down these toxins, but over a decade or two, that functioning of breaking down those toxins by the liver starts to become, it starts to lower its ability to do that. And what we want to try to do is refresh and build the liver up so it can be a good filter again. So basically, there are 2 sections to this. People come for the detoxification to help the body raise up its game, to be able to filter better and so that we feel healthier. And the other part of it is undoubtedly, for those of us that need it, it's always great to lose some weight too. So lose weight, feel great. That's kind of our idea of the program. And over the next 2 weeks, we hope that you experience that on your body and develop a much better, more healthier relationship with food. So if we could go to our first slide and show you really what you're in for over the next couple of weeks. The idea is that it's split into 3 phases, and Po will talk us through, phase 1. Basically, so for the first, you can choose how long you want these phases to be. We generally suggest the first phase is going to be for 6 days, but you can make it a week, or if you think it's too much, then you can just do 2 or 3 days, so that you're in the driver's seat with
Right.
this. This is just a kind of an aim.
That's right. This is just a kind of a model, and we want you to know that the phases are flexible. Everybody is different, so you really need to learn to listen to your own body and to how you're feeling. The good news is that the weather is really warm right now, so phase 1 is a little bit easier. When it's cold outside, phase 1, which is the most detoxifying phase, cools you down a little bit. So it's harder when the weather's colder. So now the weather's warm. It's really about springtime and rejuvenation. So going into phase 1, which is the phase where you're going to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, you're going to feel like eating fruits and vegetables. They're all out there right now. The spring greens are coming up. Those are all very, very good for your liver. They're actually, nature provides us with the foods right now that are actually the best for cleaning your liver. So that's part of the whole concept of doing a detoxification in the spring.
So, I always think of what it must have been like years ago. When you finished a hard winter, you'd probably be eating dried salted meat all winter, and the first thing that, probably just 100 years ago would come up was the dandelions. And the dandelion has a lot of ingredients in it that are extremely, supportive of the liver to detoxifying. They're the first things first greens that the settlers would have been able to get their hands on, and they're the most detoxifying. So the idea of, using supplementation alongside the program we'll also get into. But the phase 1, so what's legal in phase 1?
So phase 1 is every fruit and vegetable that you can think of, except for, in moderation, we'd like you to just be careful with avocado, bananas, and the starchy potatoes. And even then, a half a avocado is fine. Half a banana in your fruit salad is fine. It's just when you get very, very hungry, you could have a tendency to eat a whole bunch of bananas.
It's so easy
and
to
that
get
might
stuck
kind
into
of undermine your goal of weight loss. But we really want you to eat as wide a spectrum of colors of vegetables as you possibly can, because every single vegetable out there and every single fruit has some nutrient that your body will love and has been missing probably. And they all, support each other. All this broad spectrum of fruits and vegetables, they all have minerals and vitamins that will strengthen your cells, help you build healthier tissue. And the body does the work. As soon as you start to put in healthier, higher, better quality ingredients into your body, better nutrients, your body is going to slough off anything that's of lesser quality, because it always wants to make a better body. It wants to make better tissue, better healthy cells. So all you have to do is put the good stuff in, and the body will do the work.
So let's see what a typical day might look like if we could go to the phase 1. So basically, what I would do is have a big fruit salad. Now, the biggest mistake on the next 2 weeks is not being prepared. If you open that fridge and there's nothing there, you're really starving, you're gonna grab whatever is, So the idea is make sure the fridge is filled with lots of fruits and vegetables. And what I do is have a big fruit salad every couple of days, just top it up, so that when you open that in the morning, there's a big fruit salad looking right back at you. And then for lunch, a hot soup, a salad, and then for dinner, generally speaking, roasted or steamed vegetables. But roasted is usually quite filling and a lot more satisfying, especially the root vegetables. We'll talk about more of that. We just want to give you a sense of what the overview is, what you've signed up for, what you're letting yourself in for. And so the idea of vegetables, a salad going alongside the root vegetables, that's a kind of a typical plan for a day. And in the book, we've got day 1, day 2, day 3 recipes completely outlined, even a shopping list to go out and tell you what you should buy for those of you not so familiar with some of the natural foods there.
Yeah. And being prepared is the key. So there is a shopping list. We do recommend that you take a day to go and do your shop, clean out your cupboards, and really get yourself ready. And maybe even, find some kind of lunch bag or carrier bag that you can carry your stuff with you. Because for most of us who are out of the home during the day, you're going to want it when you want it. And
we were talking
otherwise
about,
you'll be tempted.
If you're at work and instead of eating what you might normally eat, oats or whatever in work, to always have a piece of fruit with you, always have something in the car, so that you can snack and you're not feeling like you have to go hungry. And the trick is not to go hungry.
Yeah,
really, the big trick is to make sure you have the 3 meals and you're prepared for them, and you've got snacks with you, while you're walking around. Then it gets easy, because as soon as we come out of deprivation, then we're connected to everything we've deprived of ourselves of, and it kind of gets overwhelming. So if we come out of this as a gift that you're giving yourself, we all know what it feels like to drink too much, eat junk food here and there. Well, this is our chance to actually experience what it's going to be like without any refined foods at all for 2 weeks. And that means, some of the stores around town, you walk in, there's nothing real in there.
Yeah.
They're all processed food. There's not one fresh piece of food in there, not one real piece of food. So we want you to experience what's it like when we just take real food for 2 weeks.
That's right, and one of the most important concepts that we often, kick off with is really getting people to think about food as energy, and what foods out there have life force. Food that is actually going to feed you and nourish you and give you energy. A lot of the foods that's packaged and refined, all of the chi, all of the life force has literally been refined out of it. So when you eat those foods, instead of being enlivened and revitalized by those foods, they often make you tired and sluggish and also hungry because they're not giving you the nutrients that you need. So this whole process is going to be very interesting because the body does adjust to the new food. It takes about 3 days, we've discovered. There's usually like the crossover days. And the first 3 days you're going to experience, that's why we call phase 1 the most detoxifying phase, because you're going to feel what it feels like to detoxify. You might get a headache. If you drink coffee, you definitely will get a headache. But you just need to know that that headache will pass. In usually about 24 to 36 hours, that headache will just kind of lift.
When you break through, you feel much better.
Yeah.
It's worth
just
it.
know that you will feel better.
If you get a tough day, because it does change.
And you may feel symptoms that you would maybe think that you're getting sick. Like you might feel like you're getting a cold, or you might feel like you're getting the flu, but don't worry, it's just part of the detox. So hang in there.
So with the overview then,
Okay.
What does phase 2 look like?
Okay,
so
phase
what's
2.
legal in phase 2?
Once you've gone through the first phase, detoxifying phase, which is the really light, food, you're going to start to add new things in. So we're going to add a cup of whole grains. That can be brown rice, millet. We definitely recommend that you experiment with new grains, things that you haven't tried before, like quinoa, or amaranth or barley. They're all very interesting grains. They all cook the same ways, and there's recipes in the book. Up to 5 rice cakes per day, and we want you to get the good healthy rice cakes, the Lundberg rice cakes.
Yeah, it's a good day when you can, after you go through fruits and vegetables, you can have a rice cake. That's a real treat at the end of the day. That becomes your dessert. My dessert is like a rice cake with a little bit of almond butter and a banana on top. It's all downhill from there. Once you get to that, that's the good stuff.
It's so funny because right now a rice cake probably doesn't sound that exciting, but by day 6 you can't wait. So
a hot soup for lunch,
soup,
salad, rice cakes.
Yeah. So what you will do in phase 2 is add to phase 1. So you'll add, maybe you'll wake up and have porridge with your fruit, or maybe you'll add rice to your soup, or you can add grains on top of your salad. It's actually sounds like a little, but when you're there, you'll feel like it's a lot. And a lot of people, once they get into phase 2, and this is where the phases become flexible, they're starting to feel so light, and phase 1 kind of gives you this light feeling. They don't want to go into phase 2, so you can go into phase 2 and then go back to phase 1. So you're just going to feel it out for yourself.
At some point during this week, most people say, I'm going to eat. I know it sounds impossible now, but people say this. I'm going to eat like this for the rest of my life. But this is a detoxifying diet. It has a goal of detoxifying. It's not a diet to support us for the rest of our lives. But that's how much of a groove you can get in and feel good, and not wanting to go off it because you want to hold on to feeling good. So it might not seem possible in the first day or two, but by the end of the week, most people break through and feel great. So phase 3.
So then phase 3 is really going back to almost normal eating. We're adding protein back in. So plant-based protein is what I would recommend, which is legumes, things like split peas. You can have hummus. But if you're really feeling like you need some meat protein, have a little bit. Make sure it's organic. That's my one, big encouragement, is to really go organic when you're going to animal foods. So then you could also have soy protein, which would look like tofu, tempeh, some of those soy.
This sounds like a foreign language. Don't worry, we got some samples here.
Yeah, we're going to show you.
We'll explain tempeh and the odd natural foods in more detail later on. So don't worry. They're just the main thing about the diet really is to try to expand out of our same old ruts that we're stuck in. We're in the same old rut, cooking the same old recipes, using the same old vegetables. What we want to try to do is break out and experience a wider range of vegetables. Try some new foods.
Right.
Try cooking with seaweed. As odd as it sounds, have a go, because if you cook something and it tastes good, 6 months from now when you say, you know what, I'm really starving, what would taste good? Then you help to reprogram yourself with these memories from the detox, and you start to think, well, you know what, I'll try cooking that seaweed dish. That tasted good. And as odd as it sounds, if you've never cooked with seaweed, you can actually start to like it. So part of the goal here is reprogramming ourselves back into healthier foods, even seaweeds.
And we really encourage you to try things you've never tried before. You know, some of those funky-looking root vegetables, the golden beets and the Jerusalem artichokes. I mean, you know, have a go, you know.
Anyway, what's a typical day on day 3 look like?
Typical day on day 3, same as phase 2, but you would probably, for breakfast, you could, I don't know, you could have your oatmeal and throw some nuts on there, and then for lunch you could have hummus on your rice cake with your salad. For dinner you could have split pea soup or lentil soup.
Sounds pretty bland now, believe you me.
You could
Phase 3 is
stir-fried
yippee.
tempeh. You can have a veggie burger. I mean, you know, sky's the limit. Phase 3.
So that's the kind of quick overview, you know, and you know, the idea of detoxification. You know, what is a toxin? Well, I'm going to just kind of set the stage a little bit from the external viewpoint, and I'm going to hand over to Dr. Gertler, who's going to scare the pants off of you with internal disease caused by toxins and how to treat it a little bit. But just in general, you know, the idea that there are so many chemicals in the system now, over 100,000 chemicals that our bodies 100 years ago never saw in the evolution of mankind, never saw these chemicals, and all of a sudden it's trying to break them down. And you know, whenever we start to read about how polluted the environment is, you know, just recently there was all those studies that came out on pharmaceuticals in the groundwater, you know, estrogens being settled into the groundwater from pharmaceuticals, that we're polluting the environment, the water and the foods. You know, we'll get into a little bit of, because it is kind of depressing. We get into the idea of, you know, antibiotics in the meat supply. You know, that 70% of all antibiotics produced are given to meat, are given to chickens and to cows, and the, you know, some of the farming practices, they're so different now. You know, I never forget when my mum came over from England about 20 years ago, and we gave her some organic chicken, free-range chicken, and she said, "Oh my God, this tastes just like the chicken did when I was a kid." And the reason is that the chicken when she was a kid didn't have antibiotics in, didn't have growth hormones in it, wasn't crammed into a shoebox with 5 or 6 other chickens till the chicken gets so fat the legs won't support it. You know, these weren't practices that happened until 20 years ago. You know, we're not feeding cows very high starchy corn, and so they're so acidic they start to burn through their stomachs, but they don't care. They keep on feeding them to get them bigger and bigger before they kill them. It used to be free range. The cows would be walking around eating the grass.
Yeah.
So these are the burgers, and these are the Kentucky Fried Chickens, and these are the kind of processed foods that are denatured and have chemical consequences that come into our body, you know, and then let alone what we're putting onto our crops. The idea of DDT being tested in the fat cells of ducks and animals, and you know, as far north as the Arctic, you know, so. Even in the polar regions, the animals and birds have petrochemicals and pesticides in their fat cells. So, you know, the perspective on all of this for me is that, you know, whenever, you know, when I would study these processes, and I'm sure most of you know it gets pretty depressing when you read about how bad things are and how terrible the diseases they cause and how they wear us down over the years. But the opposite is true. Whenever I read about the immune system or the detoxification of phase 1 liver enzymes and phase 2 liver enzymes, it's exciting, you know, because those enzymes can break down hundreds of thousands of these chemicals and process them out of the body. But that processing of the liver and of the body's systems has to be on the top of its game. If it starts to wear down, you know, we have a hepatitis program where we deal a herbal program that gets remarkable results with hepatitis B and C. But the people that call us from all over the country, their livers are stressed in a major way. They're in a disease process. The liver is being scarred. They're very confused, you know. And, you know, it's almost like 10 or 20 years from now, that kind of liver problem becomes a toxicity problem as well as a viral problem. So that's the kind of problem we face unless we rejuvenate the liver on an ongoing basis. And this is a great way to do it. What we're engaging in the next 2 weeks is no refined foods, no chemicals, very little, and no antibiotics, nothing in meat, none of the cheeses with all of the, you know, bovine growth hormones and the milk pollution that comes into those dairy products. All of that's put on hold for 2 weeks. And we're just eating real food. And our body's ability to break those down is 70%. Some people say 70% of the body's processes on a daily basis goes towards detoxification. You know, it's probably going to go down to about 40% of our bodies over the next 2 weeks. 40% of our body's process. So that leaves 30% more energy to go somewhere. And it goes into raising up the liver function, to start to build up the ability of the liver, phase 2 and phase 1 liver enzymes, and many other systems in the body. So what is detoxification? And certainly, you know, there are internal and external, and that's some of the reasons why we're doing it. If we could go to our next slide. That's the detoxification while we do it. And there's the processes. So basically cleaning out the toxins from the body, neutralizing and transforming them, which is what the liver does, mainly phase 1 and phase 2, cleaning excess mucus and congestion. That's congestion of internal toxins and external toxins, and backing up of bodily processes of the bile and the liver, of the kidneys, of the lungs. And when we start to clear some of that congestion, then the body gets a lot more oxygen. Our cells start to make better quality cells when they get more oxygen, when they're not backed up handling a lot of these pollutants. So that involves dietary and lifestyle changes that we'll cover. And Poe's big point is these things start to happen naturally when we ingest a higher quality of food, a higher vibration or a higher quality of organic food. So our amazing liver to the rescue, which is our next slide. It's a picture of our liver, our amazing liver coming up. That it breaks down, and also a lot of hormonal problems are very preventable through diet. The liver is responsible for processing testosterone and estrogens, and oftentimes excessive estrogens hanging around in the body gets up to all kinds of mischief. So the idea of looking after our liver so it becomes a better regulator and breaking down better the hormones in the body is really important. So the idea of mood swings, of PMS, of perimenopause and menopausal problems all can be affected by looking after the liver, by raising up the liver, and that's what we're engaging in.
In traditional Chinese medicine, they attribute certain emotions to the vital organs, and so the liver is really houses the emotions of anger and frustration and irritability when it's not functioning well. When it's not functioning well, when you get things like PMS, when your liver is stressed or sluggish, the sound of the liver is like grunting and groaning. If you hear yourself groaning or things are irritating you, then that's your liver talking.
Yeah, you'll open the fridge and there's no real food in there to eat. You'll start liver noises come out automatically.
Now, when the liver is functioning well, however, you have this very smooth, free, and easy feeling. It's really things are flowing and moving. So it's a very interesting flip. So you'll experience this. I'm 100% sure that by day 4 or 5, you're going to start to feel much more smoother and freer in your liver.
Yeah, it's very interesting. The wisdom within traditional Chinese medicine, the idea of the liver, being involved with anger or irritability, and planning and decision making, and this kind of free and easy flow of energy throughout the body, is when we start to eat more leafy greens, more fruits and vegetables, and then there's a freer, easy flow of energy throughout the body. And that's something that we'll experience. You know, oftentimes you can feel the energy go down, and you have another snack, it comes up. The whole idea is to try to keep it free flowing, nice and steady, nice and even. Mm-hmm. And it's a time to rejuvenate too. You know, it's not, you know, the concept in Chinese medicine of the liver is a concept that's of decision and planning making on a physical level, but it's also the ability to rejuvenate to ourselves mentally and emotionally, and also spiritually, you know. So the risk of sounding esoteric, we've taken this 2 weeks of our life, you know, to say, okay, I'm going to try to lose some weight, feel great, reprogram myself into healthier food. But oftentimes those kind of changes are involved in every religion in the world. There's involvement of rejuvenation. Whenever we start to pull back the body, detoxifying 70% of its energy, going to detoxing to 40%. That extra 30% is to rejuvenate the body, but also to rejuvenate and renew ourselves emotionally, and also, you know, the opportunity to do that spiritually. The energy flow of the seasons. There's this tree in Yale that has been measured electrically since the 1930s, and this tree was, the results they got back, it would spike at different times, the energy would go up and go down electrically, and they didn't make any sense of it until about the mid-60s, and then they handed it to some professors, astronomy professors, who realized the spikes of this tree correlated with sunstorms on the sun, and that those spikes happened 8 days after a sunstorm. So this concept of we're plugged in to the energy field of the earth, and we are energy fields ourselves. We know that the heart produces an electromagnetic field that may go 5 feet, and that people who come into contact with that kind of entrain each other and come into kind of harmony with each other. So we know that the body, we can, you know, I think that in 100 years these crude instruments that we have right now are able to measure that, okay, the heart field extends 5 feet, but we are also plugged into that electromagnetic field of the earth. And then once a year, this rejuvenating energy of spring, the sap, tons of sap being pulled up into flowers right now, the energy of the earth is completely changing and renewing, and it's a time for new growth, and that's where we are right now. And this concept of, you know, the electromagnetic field is received by our own electromagnetic field. And in Chinese medicine, we say this meridian system, these pathways of energy that the energy of the earth kind of can enter us through and rejuvenate us through, just like it's rejuvenating nature outside ourselves. This is an opportunity for us to receive that. You know, the energy flows a bit more easier, it's not so stuck, it's more easily to rejuvenate. So on the physical level, and from a scientific viewpoint, and I'll hand over to Dr. Gertler in just a minute, we have this ability of rejuvenation in the next 2 weeks. But also I invite you to explore the possibility that this can rejuvenate us on other levels as well as just the physical. So Arthur, you're going to scare the pants off everybody with disease stories?
You try not to. Well, I must say that every time I come here, it's an educational experience, listening to Poe and Geoff and the analysis, and I just have to reinforce everything they've said. Some of this information can be translated on a bodily level, a microscopic, biochemical, and physiologic, but without going into excessive detail. Just want to reinforce the concept that for millions of years on this planet, we evolved as basically vegetarians with a little protein and meat thrown in. Our gastrointestinal tracts are very long, just like vegetarian herbivores, 30 feet long. And that means we were adapted over millions of years, mainly to digest this type of diet. And it's only in the last 150 years, compared to millions of years of evolution, that we've had to adapt to a very strange and different diet, rich in sugars and carbohydrates and protein and strange fats and all these foreign chemicals we call xenobiotics that they place in our water, our food. And we know that babies are born with 600 of these on an average. Many of these are transferred from the womb, from the placenta. And by the time we become adults, about 60,000 of these chemicals have entered our bodies. Now, our livers really don't know how to handle this, as Geoff said before. They're very immature at this process. Maybe in another million years they'll learn how to handle all of them, but I think by that time that there'll be so many new chemicals that will never catch up. And what's been found and felt very seriously, not only in the holistic community, but also the Western community of medicine, as evidenced by the Larry King show a few months ago, where the famous cardiologists all stood there and said 80% of heart disease can be reversed by dietary and lifestyle changes alone. 80%. And that's been documented in medical studies with the Ornish study, using macrobiotic diets, fasting, and meditation, and the China study, a vast study of large populations in China compared to the United States, vegetarian diets compared to the American diet, showing far decreased rates of chronic diseases of all types, cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, osteoporosis in the Chinese population, with mainly a fresh vegetarian diet compared to the American diet. So that's what we're here tonight, and we want to really congratulate everybody on maybe unknowingly, but knowingly making this leap of faith and realizing their bodies can do it. Just give them the correct challenge and the right diet, and they can reverse many of these changes and start excreting these toxins. So what's really happening when we excrete toxins and go on this diet? As Geoff mentioned before, our liver is a major actor. And here the GI tract is the first barrier to the ingestion of all these things in food. A lot of healthy things go on here, but the constant ingestion of too many sweets, carbohydrates, and the wrong fat can muck up the GI tract and cause overgrowth syndromes of yeast and other bacteria, which really create a large burden on the liver because it's no longer receiving just pure food. It's receiving a lot of breakdown products from the wrong bacteria. And then the liver, which knows how, with its thousands and thousands of enzyme systems that we're born with, knows how to process these in about two different phases, phase 1 and 2. But if these are overworked and constantly trying to catch up, as Geoff alluded to, then we have very little energy left over to support the rest of the body's processes, the energy systems, the heart, the neurologic, and the immune especially. And these systems have to be functioning at peak for them to do their job in handling emotional stresses, physical stresses, sleepless periods, infectious diseases, and other toxins. So cleansing the gut is what you do on this fasting herbal program. When we say fasting, we don't mean total fasting. We mean changing the diet to a more of a pure organic vegetarian diet. And this allows energy to be used to be transferred into the liver because we're not assimilating and digesting excessive amounts of calories. And that requires a lot of calories. During the course of a day, probably more calories are spent on that than they are in physical energy needs of the muscles. So now the immune system can benefit by this excess. The liver can benefit. The neurologic system can. And these all work in concert with one another. What balances one is shuttled to the other. When there's good energy systems in our mitochondria, the little energy packets in the cells, because of good oxygen transport and healthy cell membranes, this benefits all systems: the brain, the highest metabolic organ of the body, the immune system, to fight off numerous infectious diseases, as well as cancer cells that are always growing in our body in very small amounts. And the kidneys, which, other than the liver, is the other main excretory organ. And by the way, the skin is also an excretory organ. And anybody have heard about the far infrared sauna is known for years that we can excrete a lot of toxins through the skin, but it's much slower than the other organs. So I want to emphasize that the immune system, which is fed by energy stores from our digestion, from good energy supplies and nutrients, from adequate metabolism by the liver, is very important to support. This is a surveillance system. It's always working, constantly on the go. As you know, there are always infectious agents around that we have to defend against. And this can be really benefited by this program. And the benefits here aren't just for 2 or 3 weeks. Regardless of whether you follow this diet for a long time or not, or change your diet, you'll receive these benefits for several months at a minimum. The biochemical, physiologic, and immune benefits, in addition to losing some weight. Now, the cellular oxygen uptake is something that's been studied very extensively. We have holistic tests for it, laboratories and Western tests. There's such a thing called lipid peroxides. These are oxidized portions of cell membranes, the fatty portions of cells, the lipids. And they're oxidized by free radicals, which we find in a lot of foods that have preservatives in them, heavy metals, insecticides, herbicides. We know that heavy metals, for example, increase the free radical background by 1 millionfold. And these things, these free radicals, are behind some of the chronic degenerative diseases that we see in Alzheimer's, arteriosclerosis, Parkinson's disease, cancer, and arthritis. And they also have to do with poorly working gut systems when there's an overburdening of the bacterial populations there, and when they have invaders like yeast and other bacteria which generate these things and don't allow the liver to process these and remove them with its own antioxidant system. So these free radicals are diminished considerably on your diet. You're really cleaning up all these things, and you're allowing much better oxygen transport into cells. And because you're eating healthy fats, healthy carbohydrates later on, healthy proteins later on in the third phase of the diet, you're changing the nature of the cell membranes around your body to have healthy fats and healthy proteins in there. When you change the cell membrane, you change the functions of so many of the aspects of the cell, from respiration and oxygen transport to antibody production and to genetic processes involving RNA and DNA. So you're involving global systems. And the beauty of this is that you don't have to think about any of this. The body's unconscious wisdom does it all by itself. Mm-hmm. Thousands and millions of these processes every day are being improved by this detox. And it's a very, very simple thing that you're doing. It's so simple that, as Geoff said before, think about every major religion in the world, and you'll be able to find a religious liturgy and ritual involving fasting and religion. And I think, although this is just my personal viewpoint, that this was devised long ago because people realized that in a fasting state the mind is clearer up to a certain point. We're not talking about starvation. But it's very clear that body processes slow down a little and get down to a ground state where everything works much better. And in this state, you can communicate a lot better. Many studies have shown that aspects of consciousness, alpha levels, theta levels, are enhanced by the fasting state. Meditation is improved in a fasting state. And all these things will rapidly come to fruition by you. And I should say that in return for the efforts that you've made here, your body will reward you 1,000-fold in the benefits that you gain. And someday you'll find that with these fasting programs, you'll be able to soar like an eagle and be as light as a butterfly.
Sting like a bee. Yeah, thanks, Dr.
Thank
Gertler.
you, Dr. Gertler.
Yeah,
That's
Dr.
very
Gertler has a
Yeah.
practice in holistic practice at the Darcy Wellness Clinic, and thanks for coming along. And you work very seriously with chelation and detoxification and testing for removing these burdens on the immune system from the body. But we're here today to talk about using simple food so we don't have to go see Dr. Gertler in a year or two.
Right. So we could really go on and on about all the multiple levels of benefit, on the mental level, on the emotional level, but let's talk about some of the bare bones ways that makes this process a little easier for you and a little more meaningful. One of the things that I really want to encourage is that you participate in the preparation of your food, which means that I want you to not buy already pre-chopped vegetables. If you can buy the vegetables and the fruits in the wholest form possible, take them home and clean them and chop them. You're participating in that wholeness of that experience, if you can. I mean, I know a lot of us are very busy. So some of the tricks, we've found that crock pots are very helpful. If you leave in the morning, you can throw everything in there, or the night before, you can do fruit for the morning. Turn it on low, and then 8 hours later you come home and you've got your stewed soup already ready.
It's great because I like to try to fool the kids by throwing the leftovers from the night before and telling them it's a new soup by adding a little bit of flavoring the next day. But if you're pushed for time, it's a great trick. And I think that, a large part of this is we're so busy. Everybody is so flat out, and what these 2 weeks are, right. It's kind of like giving yourself a spa experience without the paying for it. With the money, but the idea of paying for it by taking the time to slow down a little bit, to reconnect to the food. This food gives us life force. It creates our cells. And these kind of experiences can alter and reprogram us, in a very deep way. When I was, how I got the reprogramming concept, when I was a kid, I was at this yoga dojo in Japan, and it was a fasting dojo, and people would do 10-day complete fasts, with no food at all, just fluid, for like 10 days, 20 days, and 30 days. And there was a lot of sick people that would go there. And so I did this 10-day fast, and at the end of it, you were king of the kitchen. There's like 400 people in this place. You never get to go in the kitchen. They serve you like meager little bits of brown rice and vegetables. But you could go in the kitchen and be the king of the kitchen, and you could select whatever you wanted, and the cook would cook you whatever you wanted from, it was all whole food. But the reason is because that would become your favorite food for the rest of your life. So they would give you the opportunity of choosing and taking your time with it and being made special. Like that, reprogramming ourselves into healthier foods is what this 2 weeks does. And we often hear from people that they are no craving for negative foods fall away. And we had a lady in the last group, a chocoholic, for all of her life, craving just fell away from her. She kept the weight off, she kept moving forward. The reprogramming aspect of this, really don't underestimate. It has a great deal of potential. But it starts with saying, you know what, it's going to take time. Just add a little bit of time to food preparation. Reconnect to food, to the preparation of food and enjoying it. And, there are some tricks with the crock pot that you can do to quicken it up. But the bottom line is, you're going to have to go out and buy a bunch of food, and you're going to have to chop it up. But that's almost part of the process, that reconnection with the process.
And understanding, too, that this is a 2-week container. This is, you may not have to do it like this, all, forever, but that during this 2 weeks, you're going to really give it your all. You're really going to do it and participate fully. Some of the other aspects that can be helpful, sometimes our mental self will kick in. You're going to detox on your mental self as well, and that may show up as doubt, or you may find yourself surrounded by friends saying, "What are you doing this for?" Just to support your mental self. So support your mental self by reading. I mean, you can get very inspired by reading about people who've done fasting, or there's loads of books out there. You can go online and read about it. Find new recipes. Invigorate your mind. You can also, your emotional self, just be prepared that we have all sorts of attachments to how we eat and why we eat and
comfort foods are a big deal,
So those are going to show up. So the way to handle that is to really just watch it. You can journal about it if you like. That can be helpful for some people. But just know that it's just, there's no right or wrong about it. This whole 2 weeks is information for you. It's about educating yourself. So watch the games you're going to play around it. Watch how you participate. It's all good information. And, likewise, once you do get into that place where you do start to feel calmer, you may find yourself wanting to read some uplifting, spiritual texts, or doing some quiet activity, meditation. Anything's possible.
Yeah, rejuvenation. The theme really is rejuvenation. We do recommend some supplementation too. The idea that when the liver really isn't, on its top form, then what happens is phase 2 liver enzymes aren't quite up to par. It starts to tuck away these toxins into fat cells. So what it can't handle, it starts to tuck away into fat cells to neutralize it because it doesn't quite know what to do with them. So what we suggest is there's a lot of research that I went over from Johns Hopkins University on broccoli sprouts. And broccoli sprouts, 10-day-old broccoli sprouts, have a 30 to 50 times greater sulforaphane than a broccoli floret. And that intensity of sulforaphane is great for phase 2 liver enzymes. So as we start to lose weight, those toxins can come back into the body. And if we then are supplementing with broccoli sprouts in capsule form, not in the food form, you'd have to eat a lot of the sprouts even in the food form, then it helps the body process those toxins. So, there are many, I had it in my own practice, and I've read about other instances of somebody who had a very rare form of cancer, and it was in a cancer cluster, and these cancer clusters are quite well documented. And one of the cases, I saw 3 of the people that lived on the same street around about the same age in their late 60s. And one of them came in and told me that his type of rare cancer, they all had 3 types of rare cancer, of kidney cancer. And that the third person that came in to see me, his started when he'd lost a lot of weight. He had a sudden drop of a major amount of weight. And it was almost like there must have been something held in abeyance in his body that was kept in check, that when it was released back in, skewed off the cells, and the cancer was off to the races and progressed. So I'm a big fan of, I think that when we're up and running, we can handle a lot of that. But if our livers and gallbladders have been congested for a while, then it may not be. So just as insurance, we always recommend taking broccoli sprouts. Now, sulforaphane, there are many phytochemicals, phytonutrients in vegetables. We have lycopene in tomatoes, sulforaphane in broccoli, we have allicin in garlic, on and on. There are these fantastic antioxidants, cancer protecting, that we're going to be flooding our bodies with over the next 2 weeks. They're major anti-inflammatory. Oftentimes, arthritis starts to improve in some way, shape, or form, because we were up in, about 10 portions of vegetables, maybe more, a day. The average American probably gets 2 or 3 at most. These compounds are really major protections for the body. And if the broader that we eat, the broader the amounts of vegetables that we eat, the more likely we are to take sulforaphane from broccoli, allicin from garlic, lycopene from tomatoes, on and on. So the cultures, there was a 30-year Harvard-based study that happened in Okinawa, an island in Okinawa, and a client of mine kindly sent me there a couple of years ago, so I got to meet with some of the researchers who did these studies. And what they found was that the Okinawans have 80% less estrogen receptive cancer, 80% less heart disease than the US. They have the highest amounts of antioxidants in their blood of any culture in the world, and that they're clearly the longest lived. They have the highest number of centenarians. They have something like, I think we have about 60 or 70 per 10,000. They had like 400 to 500 per 10,000. 100-year-old people. They had the highest number of 100-year-old people. They had the longest lived men in the world, and Kyushu had the longest lived women, which eats pretty much the same diet as the Okinawan. It's an island about 1,000 miles south of Tokyo. So what were they eating? What were they doing? This study was looking at what were they doing. And they regularly, every single day, have 9 to 12 portions of mainly vegetables. Some fruit, but mainly vegetables. 9 to 12 portions. They did a study over here of utilization of Medicaid and Medicare based upon consumption of vegetable portions. They started at a quarter portion. Probably one piece of ketchup on your French fry or something. So quarter portion had the highest utilization. They went down to half a portion, had the lower utilization, and they stopped at two portions a day. So this idea that there's the huge nature's pharmacy trapped within these phytonutrients within plants. And the China study, too, showed that areas, it was a huge study that Cornell parsed through of over 650,000 mortalities in China. And they found that in areas that ate the traditional diet, high in fruits and vegetables, low in meats, had the lowest amounts of cancer. The newly wealthy areas that could suddenly afford processed foods and meats had the highest amounts of cancer and heart disease. So there is the phytonutrients involved in this equation, but there's also the plant-based fiber. The plant-based fiber that allows us to process out cholesterols, that uncongests the intestines is a large part of that. And what we want to try to do is offer this experience to you. Give it your best shot for 2 weeks. Just see how you can feel. Experiment with your own body when you give these nutrients to yourself. And that will become your realization. It won't be our wisdom. It'll be, in 2 weeks, is going to be your wisdom. You're going to know how you feel when you flood yourself with 12 portions of fruits and vegetables. So some of the other portions of the Okinawans were that they also have high fish, so omega-3. We'll be talking about that on our third session, about getting omega-3 fish oils supplementing with them. And seaweeds were a large portion. They have a lot more seaweeds than we do. There are 13 fantastic minerals in seaweeds. This 2 weeks we invite you to try some of the seaweed recipes, see if you can make them taste good and bring them into your diet on a regular basis. So this is all part of the theme of hoping to reprogram ourselves, getting ourselves out of the same old rut of cooking the same things, the same vegetables. Try a yellow beet. I mean, try. I only thought they were red until a few years ago. Poe brought home these yellow things. They tasted great. So now we eat yellow beets and red beets and all kinds of different vegetables. And like that, so try something on the aisle that you wouldn't normally grab. Try to stay within the parameters of organic. And we'll take you through some slides in a little bit for why you should. And Poe's pet project is how many pesticides and herbicides get thrown on these vegetables. It's quite frightening.
It is frightening. Even in one apple, there's like a paragraph of pesticides that go with that apple. But before we get into that, we need to talk about the liver flush, which is on page 36. And this is what you do every morning if you can do it. Again, these are the things we recommend. Some people, they try it once and they're like, no way. But give it a go. Have a go. So the liver flush involves lemon juice. And I think it's easier to buy organic lemon juice already bottled. You can find it in just about any supermarket. I've found it everywhere, really. Again, organic, I'm recommending. Or you can squeeze your lemons. So you're going to use a little bit of lemon juice. In the book, it says 3 to 4 tablespoons of lemon. And then to that, you're going to add a tablespoon of high-quality olive oil. So, go out and get a small bottle of really good olive oil. Then you're going to fill the cup up with about a half a cup of warm water. You're not going to look at it, and you're going to drink it. And the idea behind the liver flush is the oil helps to shunt the bile out of the liver. It really kind of gets the body going. The lemon is very astringent, so it has a lot of good properties for your blood and also helps in that process.
The sour taste in Chinese medicine
kicks off
has
the
an affinity
liver
with the gallbladder and liver, and helps to squeeze the old bile out of the gallbladder.
And then the added benefit during this first phase is that it gives you some oil in the day. So it's giving you some fat, which it's a healthy fat, and it's giving you some fuel. So for those of us who, maybe we're not so used to taking in fat in that way, I think you're going to like it, you're going to enjoy it, because it gives you sort of a sustainable energy. So what we recommend is that you do that the first thing in the morning, and then go take your shower, maybe have your cup of herbal tea after that, wait about a half hour, take a walk, whatever your morning routine is, and see how many days you can do it. I like to do it the full 2 weeks. Some people, only do it during the first phase. Geoff doesn't like it.
I do it for a couple of days, though.
Yeah. So it's
just a shot of oil before your breakfast takes a little bit of getting around.
The other option.
What I do like about it is this idea of the shunting out old bile that collects in the gallbladder is responsive. I just learned recently that 20% of the world's population gets gallstones. I had no idea it was so high, let alone any of the undiagnosed hepatic kind of stones. Intrahepatic sludge that attaches itself to the liver, and it makes it less effective too. So I'd like the idea of punching out the old bile. And also that becomes, if anybody has a problem with constipation, you absolutely have to move your bowels on the detox. Whether you use supplementation or you use the oil is very helpful, but you have to move your bowels. And the reason is if you've got any old toxins coming back in from fat cells, then you don't want to keep them and then plus reprocess the stuff from the day before. So, move your bowels on a regular basis. We have supplements that can help do that for you, but I think the oil really is very helpful for that too.
The other drink on the same page is called the Master Cleanser, and this is a drink. Some people just fast only using the Master Cleanser. You can have this hot or cold. It's lemon juice, and you can put lemon juice and fill your cup up with hot water. Or you can make it with hot water and then put it in the fridge and drink it during the day. You can add maple syrup to that and a little bit of cayenne pepper. And the principle behind this drink is that the maple syrup gives you some calories, so if you're drinking that during the day, you know, and if that's one of the few things you're taking in, it's sustaining you. Again, the lemons are astringent and blood cleansing, and the cayenne pepper stimulates your circulation. So it starts, again, it's like circulation. Things are moving to the surface, they're rising up and out, promoting sweating, those kinds of things. So this drink is, again, optional. If you like the taste of lemon, you'll really like this drink. It's actually a very nice morning drink, and a lot of people get into the habit of just, you know, after finishing the program, they still have this drink in the morning. So that's on page 36. So again, give it a try, you know, and see if you can do it every day. I think you'll enjoy it. Some of the other things that are often asked us, exercise. If you are an exerciser, we say continue exercising. Again, it's all about movement, moving chi.
Sweating too.
Sweating.
The idea, you know, Dr. Gertler brought up the idea of sweating is another way of releasing toxins through the skin. So definitely keep the exercising going. If there's a steam room or a sauna, take hot baths, hot showers. The idea of promoting an opening of the pores is very useful.
If you've got one of those dry brushes, you know, really every day give your body a brush your skin. All of this helps, you know, lift the toxins out of the body. And sleep. We really, you know, you're going to find in the beginning that you are going to go up and down and be like really wide awake and energized, and then suddenly you feel like you could just fall asleep sitting down, standing up. So let yourself sleep more in the beginning, because your body's working, you know.
Most people carry a sleep debt.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, life is so busy. Most people are clipping an hour here, and that builds up. So suddenly when you get more in touch with yourself, when you don't have, you know, so many stimulants in the foods that we normally take in, and the coffee, a glass of wine, all of those are stimulants. As soon as you don't have that, it's like come, you know, 8, 9 o'clock, if you're tired and you've got the space, go to bed early.
Yeah, go to bed early.
If you've got an extra hour to get up late in the morning, use it, because it's very helpful.
Or let yourself take a nap, even a power nap in the afternoon, you know, just allow for any possibility. Oftentimes,
power nap sounds like
Sounds
like alpha type A personality way of sleeping during the day.
It works. The other big question we often get asked is the caffeine issue. And, you know, cutting off, if you're a big coffee drinker and you like strong coffee and you stop cold turkey, that's tough to do. So we recommend kind of a weaning process. And you can do that with tea. You can do that with green tea. We do advocate green tea, even though it does have some caffeine, because it has so many other positive benefits. So that's a good way to kind of get off the coffee. Don't really advocate decaf, usually because the chemical processes that they use in decaf, even though you can buy organic decaf, are much worse.
A good cup of black tea probably has 1 quarter, maybe 1/6 of what you might get in
a big coffee.
In coffee, you know, green tea is going to have a little bit less. And then in our store we sell bancha, which is a twig tea. And twigs have far less caffeine in them than, you know, a minute amount of caffeine. It still tastes good.
And there are these herbal teas. They're specifically designed for detoxification, called detox tea. A lot of these teas have the bitter greens in them that are, you know, what we've been talking about. They really activate the liver. So if you want to try those, they're kind of fun to do during this 2 weeks.
And lots of water too. You know, I like the good quality, you know, waters and you know, even the sparkling waters are very refreshing. Drink a lot.
Waters
helps the detoxification.
You know, enjoy yourself. You know, really treat yourself to some special waters. Some of the items here that we found really help. This is called an item called Bragg's. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. You can buy it as a sprayer or in a. It's usually over by the soy sauces and the shoyu. It gives you. It's not sodium, as you know it. So virtually this diet is salt-free, but this gives you a nice salty taste. You can spray it on your vegetables, or it's actually it's a lifesaver.
Salt-free is real good, but you do find yourself in the bathroom a lot during the first couple of days. But you know, if you're concerned about weight loss, you know, you watch the edema that you might have will clear up almost within a couple of days. The body will get rid of, slough off excess fluids that are not being retained by the amount of hidden salt. And there's major amounts of hidden salts in most canned products that you look at, in most processed foods, huge amounts. And in soy sauce, that really mess with people's blood pressure. So these next 2 weeks, you're going to be having practically zero salt.
If you're not familiar with seaweed, this is a convenient way to purchase it. You can buy it at Whole Foods, and often, some of the other markets have sections. The recipes are in the book and on the back. I highly encourage you to just experiment with that. This is something called agar-agar. It's a seaweed flakes, and you can make jello out of this, or aspic. And so this was a nice way to give yourself a dessert.
And it actually is a good dessert. Seaweed dessert sounds a bit rough, but really, there's no taste of seaweed
whatever
in agar-agar.
juice you use is the flavor of it. It's delicious. I like using these all-fruit spreads. These are a nice way to just, liven things up when you can have your rice cakes. These are the rice cakes we like, the Lundberg ones.
The organic.
Salt-free, organic. They're good.
And salad dressings, Pam.
Salad dressings, oil, and lemon juice and vinegar, balsamic. I'm on this new kick of I don't like canola or soy oil from what I've been reading. So if you can stick to the olive oil, I would recommend that. And you can now, if you can make your own vegetable broths, fantastic. But you can get this conveniently, and I think this is an easy way to make soups. So I would, that's one convenience food I think is very helpful.
Yeah, it's great for the crock pot with the leftovers, and you just throw a bunch of that in and leave it, and you've got a whole new soup the next day.
And these are some crunchy legal items. Crunchy peas.
Oh yeah, the other crunchy thing is those vegetable chips.
Yeah.
Don't go crazy on them, but just to have something in phase 1, and they're very useful. It's just basically dehydrated vegetable chips.
Very good.
And with salsa, you've got your dip, so you can have your little dip before the meal. So the other major thing is keep the ritual of your meals. If you have a ritual and you sit down and you share a meal, keep the ritual of it. Try to give yourself different courses and fool yourself into thinking you've had a good meal.
Now this is almond butter. You can grind your own at Whole Foods, which is nice. This is so delicious, and you can have this in phase 2. But again, moderation is key when it comes to almond butter. But that's a great thing. And then this is miso. It comes in, usually comes in tubs like this. It also comes in jars, sometimes in packets. A little bit in phase 2, it adds a really nice sort of salty, brothy taste to your soups. And the fermented soybeans are very beneficial to your digestive bacteria and your enzymes. So, that's a nice addition. If you've never used miso before, I think you'll like it a lot.
Great.
Yeah.
So we're going to wind it up a little.
We should have some questions. Anybody have any
I
questions?
don't think we've got the mic set up for people.
Oh.
We can pass the mic
Pass
around.
the mic, yeah.
So where do you buy all of this? At Whole Foods? Or?
Whole Foods is one place, but I found that even Shaw's has a very nice kind of Wild Harvest section, and Stop and Shop. And Roach Brothers now has its own organic line, so I would really go to what's most convenient for you. You
Whole
might
Foods
be
is a better
finding
selection.
new sections of your supermarket.
And Sudbury Farms? Is
Sudbury
that there
Farms,
too?
yeah, and they have their own whole organic choices now.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
yeah. Any other questions?
Any other answers?
Yeah.
I don't know if you could use the maple syrup for other things besides the...
No.
What would you use it on? Yeah. Oh, maybe fruit. Yeah.
I don't know, but it sounds like you could get pretty inventive.
I would
and it's
say
pretty
no.
sugary.
I would say no. Yeah.
You nearly found the loophole, Stephanie.
I would say no.
Maple syrup popsicles?
Yeah. Maple syrup is good food, though. It has a kind of sugar that no other food has
Actually,
that is very beneficial to the body.
Natick, somebody brought us in a Natick.
Native Organic Farms.
Natick Farms has an organic made from Natick trees.
Yeah.
Hard to get maple syrup that wasn't organic.
I know, that's true.
Yeah.
But apparently,
That's right.
yeah.
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 I should add that the farmers market every week in the summer months in Natick, in the park, it's not officially organic food, but it's very, very close. And I think you could pretty much rely on that. I've done that for years.
Yeah, and there's kind of a rule of like a hierarchy of if you can't get organic, buying local. Well, if you can get local organic, that's number 1. That's the best. And no, growing your own vegetables is the best. Number 2, local organic. Number 3, organic at the supermarket. Number 4 would be local. And then after that would be conventional. And, a lot of people say, wow, I can't buy organic, it's too expensive. But I tell people you're throwing your money away if you're buying conventional produce because there's no nutrients in there. And you're getting a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want. Your body has to work to excrete, so it's
we'll
not
get
worth
into
it.
details on that next week.
Next week, yeah.
But so in general, and just in summary, the idea of organic where possible, but if you have to eat out, go with salads, go with on the vegetable side. The local restaurant would be Big Fresh in Framingham, great organic food. Try to just stay within the parameters of the program. Or, if you're out anywhere else, salads. And so that's phase 1. If you have an uncomfortable day, any detoxing happens, and around day 2 it will pass. Don't react, because you can break through. When you break through, it feels really good. And
you can call us at any time.
Day or
you can
night,
call
3
each
in the
other.
morning.
You can call.
I need a pizza.
We do recommend people kind of finding a buddy,
Yeah.
so you can call each other.
So you can call and moan too.
And just remember, anything's possible. I mean, everybody's different, so you're going to have your own version of this. And every time we do it, it's different for us. Yeah. Every single time.
Sometimes you don't get the coffee, whack up alongside the head with the coffee 2x4. Yeah. You don't get the headache. Sometimes you do. It's very curious. Yeah. It's a curious process. But it's a great opportunity, and you've kind of committed 2 weeks of your precious time in life to have a go at this. Really see what it feels like. See what the people in Okinawa are doing. Why the people in Crete are so healthy. And all of these cultures that have such a high degree of fruits and vegetables, such massive amounts of antioxidants and phytonutrients in all of them. So give it your best shot this week. See what it feels like. You could take the broccoli sprouts as a supplement. Also, I suggest getting the Power Green drink, which is 100% organic. Way of one small drink gets you an extra 2.5 portions of fruits and vegetables. So really lean in and see how many portions you can get on board and how it feels when you do that. So Poe has a great poem from Rumi we're going to finish with.
I'd like to finish with, we put some poems in the back, so when you get to those spaces where you're feeling like you need some inspiration, these are helpful. This one is called Fasting. It's on page 68. There's hidden sweetness in the stomach's emptiness. We are lutes, no more, no less. If the sound box is stuffed full of anything, no music. If the brain and the belly are burning clean with fasting, the fog, every moment a new song comes out of the fire. The fog clears and new energy makes you run up the steps in front of you. Be emptier and cry like reed instruments cry. Emptier, write secrets with the reed pen. When you're full of food and drink, an ugly metal statue sits where your spirit should. When you fast, good habits gather like friends who want to help. Fasting is Solomon's ring. Don't give it to some illusion and lose your power. But even if you have, and if you've lost all will and control, they come back when you fast, like soldiers appearing out of the ground, pennant flying above them. A table descends to your tents, Jesus' table. Expect to see it when you fast, this table spread with other food, better than the broth of cabbages.
Two phrases I love in there is an ugly metal statue sits where your spirit should, when we overconsume and overeat. And the other one is that I think that the more we're able to observe cravings and not react to them, then that's like the soldiers that come to our rescue. The idea of the more we don't react, the easier it is not to react. And then all of a sudden, it's like, my God, I'm not craving chocolate, I'm not craving this, I'm not craving that. And you're into the groove. So I hope you give it your best shot, and thank you very much for being filmed tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
See you next week.